Well, want to just say thank you for tuning in. We are now on our 10th episode of Color Him Dads, and we're excited to have you again. In fact, I'm really excited to have you be a part of this podcast. I'm sitting here with my brother, who's been my best friend for all our lives, right? And so it's going to be very interesting to talk about. This is a very interesting story. You'll hear a little bit of how we came into a very strong relationship as young kids, and how we matured, how we've grown, and how we've come to today as fathers of children with grandchildren's, and how that all came about. So I'm just here to say thank you for tuning in again, and I hope you enjoy this session of Color Him Dad. So my guest is Ricky Stewart Cotton, who's my brother, and I'm Marvin Charles Cotton, to be exact. And so we're going to have a conversation around kind of our childhood. And go on, are you with me, Ricky?
Yeah, I'm with you, Marvin. This is going to be interesting because we've discussed our childhood, but I'm quite sure we both got a little different take on how we feel things went, because,
exactly.
When it's happening to you, you kind of get a different take on things. And some stuff we agree on, some stuff we see through a different lens, which is good.
Right. Well, listen, I want to start off. The question I have for you, brother, is what does fatherhood? That's what I've been around. You've been with me for in the early days when it was just me, you, and Jeanette, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
yes, I was.
So tell me this: what is fatherhood? What's your fatherhood story?
Well, I'm gonna start with the first thing I saw is I was with you today that you were working for Oasis, and you had to make a decision to quit that job. Now, that was a real hard decision because you had young children at home, and you had to have some way to bring money and put food on the table. And you said, man, I really believe strongly in this thing about dads, and I can't do it if I'm working here at Oasis. So I'm gonna have to take this chance, and I wanted to tell you no, don't do it, but I wasn't gonna do that. I always tried to back whatever you were trying to do, and if you felt that wholeheartedly about it, because I was there the day you told them and turned the uniform in.
Right.
I was there that day, and we didn't know how that was gonna turn out. And then the other dad story I have is my grandson is here. He's doing all the technical stuff. Well, his mother, she was in her early 20s. Now I could go find her through her mother or her grandmother, but I had walked in darkness for so many years. I didn't want to do that anymore. And you came to me and you said, I got this lady that found your mother,
Right.
and you said this would be easy for her to find your daughter. So I said, go ahead,
Wow.
and that's how I hooked up with my daughter.
I forgot that
for the final time.
I forgot that
for the final time because I stayed clean after that. I didn't walk in darkness anymore.
Karen King was there. Right?
Karen King, I got it written down.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. And she found my daughter, and I could go knock on my daughter's door on my own without going through her grandmother or her mother, which I had did before, which they didn't mind. But I felt like this was the time where I should put the onus on me, not nobody else, And so go do that one-on-one and try not to take it no further than an introduction.
Right.
But the lady Karen King,
I remember that
together.
I remember that, man. I remember that. I remember it was a little nerve-wracking for you to do that, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But we pulled the trigger, and so you felt like we always did as kids growing up. If you pull the trigger, you got to be able to man up for it, right?
Right.
And I do remember that now. That's crazy, man. I forgot all about that. Hey, so I tell you what, let's go a little bit back farther than that, and I'm gonna open up here and really talk nuts and bolts right now. So you're not my birth brother, but if I ever had one, you would be it, right?
Right.
And I say that because when I met you as a young teenager, I just got let out of juvenile because I ran away from this abusive home that I was in, and I went to stay with this family, who was a friend of mine's in high school, and he asked his mother, she said, yeah. And this was a friend of mine who came from a pretty well-to-do family. You know, it was a single mother family, but all the children were there. And he invited me into that home, and I sorely didn't have anywhere else to go, so I went there. But it wasn't long after I was there that a lot of stuff was taking place, happening in the home, and I was being accused of a lot of things that I was not doing, right? And I could not understand that, right?
I understand.
And then they went on a candy selling trip. And this was my second time being offered. I turned down the first time, but the second time I went. And that's when they went to Eastern Washington. And I remember I was in the truck, and I didn't do good at all in this candy selling. So I slept in the truck. And I remember you guys did do pretty well. And you guys got a chance to sleep in a hotel room, right? And I remember that some money came up missing.
Right.
And it was yours that came up missing.
Right.
And it was I don't know if I ever told you this, but this was the same stuff I was being accused of. So that's how I knew. I know everybody asked that question, how did you know, right? It was because I was being accused of the same thing, right? And so I told you, man, I know who got your money.
Right.
You remember that conversation?
And I didn't doubt you because everybody else was my friend, and they wouldn't dare do nothing like that. I'd been around them a lot. This ain't the first time we went on out-of-state candy trips, but this was the first time this particular person was there, and it just shocked me that you know, like they say, it ain't no fun when the rabbit get together. Yeah. I had did all kind of stuff to people, but nobody had never done it to me. Right. Don't you know who I am?
Yeah.
So it happened to me, but as it turns out, I had a heavy resentment against that person. But as it turns out, because I tried to jump on the man that was in charge of taking us over there to sell the candy. Yeah. I wanted to jump on him and everybody else. It's your fault this happened. You know what I mean? Right. They threw a hat down, and I ended up with more money than what had got stolen from me.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and I took that money, and Emma and Cotton gave me a 65 Grand Prix because I took it to Earl Shives to get it painted. They had that $99 special.
Yeah. So listen, this is what I wanted to do was, and I think this is very prevalent for our conversation today. What happened was, because that took place, you befriended me and vice versa, right? And then you brought me home to your house. You introduced me to your mother and father, right? And I remember after that introduction, this weighed heavily on my heart. I went into that house. I met your mother and your father. I met your brother, Lee. And I walked out of there thinking, I wish one day they would call me son. I walked out of there with that understanding, right? I was 16 years old, bro. I'm 68 years old today, right? And on Father's Day, which was 2 days ago, right? That lady there that I met that day is now my mother. Right. And she just prepared me a Father's Day dinner. Me and you both, right? At my house.
Right.
So I'm looking at that long journey that we had to travel. Now, me and you, we had some journeys together, right?
Yes, we did.
We had some real journeys together.
I don't think an hour would be enough to tell them all. We'd have to have volume 1 all the way up to volume 50.
Hey man, it was an introduction to a family that I had no idea I would be involved with for the rest of my life. But that's everything that I wanted.
And you know what's strange? I done met everybody in your family.
Yes.
You know, even though your family's blended. From Marion to your dad to your mom.
Yep.
To you know, all of them. Who was Mr. Charles's wife?
Nora Charles. No, Pearl Lee.
Pearl Lee. Yeah, Mr. Charles and Pearl Lee.
Yeah.
I got along with Mr. Charles.
Yes,
you know what I mean?
A little bit better than me.
And then who was that other family where Norman, your cousin Charles?
That was the Taylors who I ran away from.
Yeah, I got to know them.
Yeah.
I got to know Manuel. I got to know all of them.
I was in an adopted home afterwards. Some people adopted me because I didn't have nowhere to stay. You in the Colacertos, you even became a member of their family as well as I did. Right?
Well, wherever we went, we came as a package.
Yeah,
my mom and dad probably didn't want the package, but they had to take it because we came as a package. You know, you seen one, you was gonna find another, or you was hidden in the closet under the bed or somewhere.
Yeah,
you know, but when I went to my Uncle Todd's and Mud Deers and them, you was right there with me.
Right there with
you. They were talking about putting me out. Hey man, they gonna put us out.
Hey, this was so together till when Ricky got mad at his mom and dad and he wanted to run away. I ran with him.
So I don't mean to cut you off. Something that you had already done.
Yeah.
Now here I come. You telling me, what's wrong with you? I done already tried this.
Yeah.
Why you want to do this?
You don't want to do this, man.
Yeah.
But because we were so close as friends, I ran away with you, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I wanna kind of go a little bit deeper than that. You know, one of the things that I admired the most was that you had a mom and dad, you had a brother.
Okay, I got to say this because now the dad Marvin somebody was my stepdad, but Marvin met my real father too.
Yeah,
Curtis. We used to go stay with him in California. Well, go visit him.
Yes.
Yeah. So we met him too. So yeah.
Well, why don't you expound on that a little more? The difference between Curtis and Cotton.
Okay, so my dad was like a jokester. He was just like a good buddy because my mom did all the disciplining. She didn't allow him. Well, he didn't want to. You know, he had a drinking problem. My mom, she was no saint, but she never drank or drugged or nothing, far as I know. The background she came from. My dad, Curtis, my grandmother. My grandmother made homebrew. You know what I mean? The kind that would blow up in the basement. Not like, it wasn't that nice stuff your dad used to have, Mr. Charles. It was the kind you had to get the percolating in the basement.
Yeah.
So by the time I got to Madrona, which is the 5th grade, my mom had already put my original dad out. She had because she couldn't take it. Because we was always having to hide in the house, and people were coming to get the refrigerator, the washer and dryer, because my mom was working and my dad was running around with a convertible. I think he had a Mercury or something. It was purple and white like Garfield, and all he was doing was hanging around Garfield chasing them young girls up there where my mom was working. So she got rid of him at a very young age. And then she married my stepdad. But I got 2 fathers, and they both buried at the same place. And my Uncle Todd, too, at Mount Tahoma out there. When I go out there and put flowers, I don't put real flowers anymore. I put plastic ones. When we go put flowers, I got 3 places I go when I go out there. My 2 dads are in the ground, and my Uncle Todd's in the wall. And it's strange because my real dad, my other siblings, which I got a sister, Rachel and Lee, and you never had no say on this, but they, in his will, all he wanted me to do was throw all the ashes into some lake or some river, and I took half his ashes and had him buried at Mount Tahoma because he was in the military. Right. So that day, if one day my brother Lee or my sister Rachel would want to go to his grave, they might reconsider.
Right.
To this day, they haven't reconsidered.
Really?
You know what I'm saying? But I don't hold no resentment, because I wasn't the greatest of a father. So I understand that you can't hold no resentments, you know what I mean? Plus my life wasn't real bad because of my father.
Right.
You know what I mean? It wasn't his fault. You know what I mean? Things turned out the way they did between him and my mother.
So could you say that you maybe kind of sort of followed in his footsteps?
Well, kind of, sort of. Well, the thing of it was, my mom had heard so much about stepfathers beating somebody else's kids that my mother wouldn't let my real father or my stepfather have anything to do with whooping us or disciplining us. And she quit whooping us about when we got 10 years old. She said we too big. She'd hand out punishments. But she handed out punishments like penitentiary time. And then I had some friends tell me, yeah, that's why you never went to the penitentiary.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, I've had a couple close friends come tell me that,
Wow.
yeah, man, you're blessed. Yeah, because
Wow.
your mama did that. Yeah, you didn't never go to jail, do no time, or
You know, it's crazy because I remember when me and you came to the age they were sending all of our friends to prison.
every last one of them.
And me and you used to talk highly about how we wasn't gonna let that happen to us. If we had to, we would leave town. And I remember the first time I left is when Emma put me and you in the car. We was 15 and 16 years old and drove to Oakland, California to see her brother. And that was the first, man, I was excited, man. You know what I'm saying? But it was that I realized today now it was that put that drive in me and you both to be able to travel.
Now Marvin kind of sugarcoated this. My uncle was in San Quentin. You know what I mean? Yeah, he was in San Quentin. When we went to visit him, we had to put on suits and slacks because you couldn't wear jeans up in there. Because if you did, they might keep you. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I mean the real San Quentin.
Hey, listen, Ricky had on some shoes, and back then we used to put horseshoe taps on them, right? And every time we crossed that penitentiary line, we'd go through the checkpoint, the buzzer would ring because he had them horseshoe taps on. Did you have to take them shoes off?
I don't know what we had to do. They let us in, you know what I'm saying? But
we was young, man.
Yeah, but I never forget going there.
But that was Scared Straight before Scared Straight came around.
Yeah.
Because we went into that penitentiary and saw that was San Quentin.
Yeah.
I don't never want to do nothing this wrong in life, right? You remember that?
No.
Yeah.
'Cause that's where they was going to send you. Yeah, that's where they was going to
Well,
send you.
here's the thing that I really want to touch on, Rick, was the first real man I saw in my life that I wanted to portray one day in my life was Cotton, was our stepdad. You feel what I'm saying? Why? Because he was young enough and not old enough to where we could see his name rang. He was kind of sharp. He was kind of slick. He worked a job. He took care of his family. He mirrored everything that we knew a man was supposed to be, right? Mm-hmm. Now, he used to always pull tricks on me and you, right? Because it was one point me and you weren't supposed to be together at all.
You're right.
You remember that?
And he called us, but he laughed it off. He was just doing that for my mom. He had my mom buffaloed thinking he didn't care nothing about us being together.
He didn't just have mom buffaloed. He had me buffaloed too. Because that day he walked up on the car and swung the door open and grabbed you. Scared me to death. I thought we was dead, and then he just walked away laughing about it. Remember that?
Now, see, you got a different take on that. See, I gravitated more to my Uncle Todd. And I call him my uncle, but he's not my blood uncle, but he's the best uncle I ever had. And I loved him because he always kind of let me do what I wanted, but he kept his eye on me, and because I ended up going. Marvin said I ran away from home. Well, I did. When I ran away from home, after that I ended up staying with him.
Right.
And he to me he was a good uncle. He was that uncle that let you bring your girlfriends over. You had to be safe. He let me do a lot of things that I couldn't dare do at home.
He gave you, so that was a father figure.
That's what I was getting at.
Yeah. He was a father
when you said father figure, because he did some things too, but he always went to work. He always took care of home.
Yeah,
and he told me whatever me and you do, don't you let because he had 2 young boys. Don't you teach them none of this.
Yeah.
What I mean? I had enough sense, you know what I'm saying? Because I was a teenager.
Yeah.
I was a young man.
He was Todd.
Yeah.
Todd and Cotton were our father figures. And they came along at a time in the 70s when things were really loose. But because they had these families, they incorporated their looseness not to get too loose. You feel what I'm saying?
Plus, we were in Seattle.
Yeah.
It didn't make a lot of sense to get too loose in Seattle.
Right.
Because they were gonna keep the clamps on you. You were kind of in a box. But as I got older and went a lot of different places, Seattle was one of the best places to live to me. You know, because I done seen a lot and done a lot, and there's not a lot of places like Seattle, Washington. Yeah, I feel like if you can't make it here, you can't make it nowhere.
Well, see, you have to be careful that we don't tell our kids that. Because
the cost of living done changed here now. I'm talking about when we came up.
That's true.
Things done changed. Can't nobody live in Seattle now. You got to pull teeth to live in Seattle now.
So let me kind of stir us back to the benefits. You talked a little bit about the benefits that you got from Uncle Todd, right? And I kind of talked about some of the benefits I got from Cotton, and these were role models who had an impact in the community. I know because I had the chance to participate in the funeral service of both of these men, and I tell you, man. One of the times Todd and Cotton got my attention, I'll tell you, I called myself wanting to be a dope dealer one time.
I can't remember this.
You know what I mean?
I can't remember this.
I bought some drugs, and I asked Todd to go get it for me, right? And so he said, yeah, he took my little $300. It was all the little money I had. So he took my little $300, and he came back with some cocaine, right? And then he told me what to cut it with. So go to the grocery store and get some stuff, and you cut it with this. Well, that stuff ate all my dope up, right? So he was making sure I didn't be no dope dealer, right? But he just didn't tell me. It was a learned lesson that cost me $300, right?
Right.
So I knew after that I wasn't. You couldn't get me to sell a box of Luton cough drops, a name but 50 cents.
And I believe he told you, a police friend of his had told him you had did a hand-to-hand. You had did a hand-to-hand up on Madison, and at that time, Madison was pretty rough.
Yeah.
And you was up there trying to do some hand-to-hands. I don't know how many you did.
No, let me tell you this. This is a real story. I had never been on Madison. I crossed Madison because I was living up there with Zephyr, right?
Right.
But he came with these pictures and this conversation, so it scared me to death. Not only do I not want to mess with drugs, but I don't want to even hang out on Madison.
Right.
But he was really strategic in how he kept me a handle on me and you without keeping a hand on me and you, right? And so he scared me for a long time. I mean, he would just he psychologically he knew how to keep me and you. And then one time we got bold, and I remember the first time we went to an after-hour joint. You was driving, you drove us we went to the after-hour joint, and the house got raided that night, right? The first night we stepped out there, right? But what they didn't know was they took pistols off of me and you. Took two guns. You had one, I had one.
Right.
And they belonged to Todd.
Right? and my godmother, Mud Deer.
Right.
They were automatics. They were either 22s or 25. They're the small, you know. But they were guns, and we got caught with them.
And now we got to explain to him that we got these pistols and the police and took them from us, right? You know what I mean? And that was one of the hard things to do, but I always commended you for this.
In case people on the podcast don't know, after our joints are places that open after the club closed, that all the illegal activity that's going on is going on in there. Drugs, alcohol, women, whatever.
And this is what you didn't add. And we ain't had no business in there because we was minors, right?
Because we were 15 and 16 years old. And as a matter of fact, I think I posed for my mugshot to let you know how silly I was.
Yeah, we did. But it's the thing that it's funny because I remember that Todd and Cotton's name were ringing enough that people would say, you know, that's Cotton's sons right there, right?
And let me tell you this, my dad was a big man. They called him Bear. He was a big, strong man. He wasn't big and fat, nothing, and he was imposing. So you better come correct when you talk to him, you know, because he just scared you. You know, he scared me. I tell you that.
Well, the thing that really. To me, I was impressed by the fact that people knew that was our dad.
Right.
And so no matter where we went throughout the town, throughout the city, we had a reputation because he was our dad.
Right.
We didn't know what to do with that reputation.
Right.
You know what I mean? But we had one. And as two young kids, you always, well, that's my dad, right? Or people would tell us, well, we know who your dad is.
And my Uncle Todd was in the civil rights with Tyree Scott, so they were protesting a lot of job sites, construction sites, if they didn't have fair jobs for everybody. If everybody wasn't of a different nationality on the job, they did a lot of protesting.
So the point that I was trying to just really, as I bring us back, that we had some pretty significant role models as father figures, but we didn't pay attention to none of that.
So we were going in another direction.
Well, it's funny because now I have to reflect that when our children do the same thing, we have a basis to base that on. We have a sense of understanding about that, right? I got 4 boys, and when they ain't hearing me, I got to always remember, when you was this age, who was you listening to?
I always think of that when I think of your daughter in Texas, Marvette.
Yeah,
what I mean? You begged her not to go. Don't go down. But what did we do? We did the same thing.
Yeah, they asked us to not do a whole bunch of things, right? So Rick, let me kind of pose on you. When did fatherhood become important to you? When did you realize that there was an opportunity for you to pull away from what you used to be and pull towards what you needed to be for your children?
Well, for me, I got to say that out of the 3 of us, me, you, and Lee, I was the last one to come out the rain. Lee kind of came out the rain first. Then you came out the rain. Now, no, I don't think nobody remember this. I was right in between you and Jeanette. We were all at Cedar Hills.
Yeah.
I got there to the treatment facility. Cedar Hills was a treatment place. And Marvin was there getting ready to graduate. I showed up. And then when I got ready to leave and graduate, Jeanette came. Now, we didn't plan none of this.
Yeah.
This is part of the assessment and what the state did.
Yes. Yeah.
So, but you and Jeanette stayed out of the rain for the final time, and I came in out the rain a little late. Now I got to be honest. Some of the reason why I came out of darkness, because I was getting too old. You know what I mean? It's only so long that you can walk in darkness and all that other stuff that I was doing. Where before you got to come to your senses. So once I started getting some clarity, after being in 10 different treatment centers. You had a lot to do with the last treatment center I was in, which was the Union Gospel Mission one, which it really wasn't a treatment center. It was like going to what they call a theology school you go seminary school when you go to be a preacher or something, because all we did was pray in and pray out. And it was a behavior modification place, meaning they kept their foot on my neck, which I needed. So when I came there, they asked me, did I have a girlfriend? Did I smoke? Because I had a choice of going to 3 different places. I could have went to the Union Gospel Mission downtown. I could have went to the one, New Vision, what was over there off of Madison, where I stayed right across the street from Mount Zion. I said, no, I want to go to the one in Riverton, because you couldn't have no girlfriends, you couldn't smoke, you couldn't do nothing. So I said, that's good for me. And I've always wanted to know what was in the Bible, but I didn't have time to read it because I was walking in darkness. So when I left there, I could say the books of the Bible backwards. I can't even say them forward now. But I could say that, because they had a thing where if you say the books of the Bible, they gave you $50 or something. And when my time came up, they said, oh, no, we got to stop this. We can't be inspiring people to do this for money. Because they didn't believe in you having a whole bunch of money up in this treatment center. They gave you like $15 a week. So back to your original question, when did I start taking everything seriously? Is when I got out of there, but I had to grow into it.
Okay.
So
because the treatment allowed you to grow into it.
Okay. Because this is what happened. I couldn't have a phone in the treatment center, but I got the same phone number I got now, not the same phone. It was a plan where you could talk on the phone Monday through Friday, all you want. But on the weekends, the only time you could talk late was night and weekends. So I would come home about 6 months later on the weekend. I would call everybody. I would call my kids. I would call my aunties. I would call all my relatives. I started building a relationship because I didn't have nothing to do but try to mend these relationships because I had burned so many bridges, you know, and this way I didn't have no money, so I could calmly build these relationships. Just call them on their birthdays, call them and say hi, how you doing, have a normal conversation. Wasn't calling asking for no money, wasn't calling asking for
what you had been known for doing.
What I had been known for doing.
Right.
You know, none of that. Just call, see how you doing. And I could talk to him for a little while.
See, it's funny because I remember Mom coming to me and she said, "Marvin, can't you do something for Ricky? Can't he do what you did?" And I remember saying to her in your apartment, "Mom, I can't do nothing until he get ready to do something. He got to be ready to do something." And I heard this little voice say, "Marvin, I'm ready." And I was like, what? I was shocked. What?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I'd always, you know, we've been so close together as brothers till anything I had and vice versa, you would get the first piece of it. You feel what I'm saying?
Right.
And so when I heard you say that, I picked up the phone and called the president of the organization, right, and said, "Man, I need my brother to get." And I remember how you walked right on in there, right? So that was, and here's the other thing. We were so much alike till I knew whatever I did or could do, you could do, and vice versa, right? We've always had that that understanding. So to watch you then come out, get clean, and start being a father to your daughters. You have 2 daughters, right?
Right.
And watching you do that, it was never no doubt in my mind that you had the capability to do it. Because I remember how you would father my kids. You know, I was the first one off the block to have my kid up underneath me. You remember what I'm saying? We had little Marvin with us, right?
Right.
You know what I mean? We traveled. Little Marvin traveled with us. I watched how you used to be up on him. You know what I'm saying? So I knew whenever you got the opportunity to be with your kids, it was you had the qualifications.
Well, we first both had to get some clarity.
Yeah.
Well, you know, you can't when you got all them other distractions. You know, I don't know if Cedar Hill brought you to the Lord, but something brought you to the Lord. And once it brought you to the Lord, the rest of it speaks for itself. The rest of it speaks for itself. Because once you start reading what the Lord wants you to do, it takes you to all that. It takes you, and then you get it in small increments. You know what I mean? And for me, I was like you. I only got what I could receive.
Right.
I didn't understand everything in the Bible. You know what I mean? But I didn't try to.
Right.
But the stuff I did understand, the Lord said, "Well, what you gonna do with that?"
Yes.
You know what I mean? That's the way He talked to me.
Yes.
Okay. I know you understand the first 2 because all them commandments, there's 10 of them. I understand the first 2.
Right.
I understand the first 2. I get the first 2 right.
Like mine. All the rest of them come with it, right?
Yeah. Everything else falls into place.
Yeah. That's good. So tell me this then, man. What's your relationship with your children? You have 2 beautiful daughters. Talk about that. What's their ages and all that?
Okay, so my oldest daughter's 44. You're 24, right, Irie? Okay, he's 24. Reason why I know Irie and LaJohn. Okay, Irie's my grandson. LaJohn's my nephew. But I got daughters. But I don't have no sons, you know what I'm saying? So they're like my sons, you know what I mean?
Gotcha.
But I'm still, with my daughters, I have a relationship with them, but I don't come in there trying to be daddy, you know what I mean? Because they got husbands,
right?
You know what I mean? And they got and they got children, you know what I mean? Now, if they ask me for some fatherly advice, I give it. But I was not there when both my daughters were in their 20s when I got into their lives. They were grown,
right? You
know, so I just all I do is just try to be there,
right?
And far as I know, the relationship's good. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But I learned from being in treatment and being in the Word and going to Bible study that you got to make amends.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I made amends to my daughter, but that don't mean they gonna take it.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because you got some kids. You know what I'm saying? They take it, they give it back. They take it, they give it back. But I try to stay neutral without being scared. You know what I mean? Ain't nobody. I'm not gonna be nobody's doormat.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But hey, I'm still learning as I go.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? I'm still learning as I go.
Yes,
you know what I mean?
yes,
With
yes.
kids, you never know.
Yeah.
And like with my grandkids, I just try to be grandpa. You know what I mean? Grandpa got a couple bucks for you. You know what I mean? Yeah, you know, that's all I remember. I couldn't wait to see my grandparents because they were gonna pull out something shiny and give it to me. You know, so and then I try to be part of the solution, not part of the problem.
Right.
Yeah. Now sometimes you gotta make some hard decisions. You know what I mean? But you know, I can do it now because my mind is clear. You know what I'm saying? You know, and I come home and pray about stuff, and sometimes say, did I make the right? Because I don't know.
Right,
you know what I mean?
Right.
God said you on your own with this. Yeah, he just tell me you on your own with this. I didn't gave you all I can give you. You know, use what I gave.
Right.
You know,
Right. Well, that's crazy because I know that all of my kids call you Uncle Rick. All my kids know Uncle Rick. You know? And that's a real blessing to me because they know the journey. There's no secret. Our kids know our background.
Believe me.
They know where we came from. They know what we've been into, and furthermore, they really do honor what we've done and how we've come out on the other side. I was with our nephew Kyle yesterday.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And I realized that I took him to storage to look at some furniture. And in the middle of that, I was realizing, wait a minute, I told you the other day, you said this furniture wasn't going to fit in your car. Fit in your house because you just got a smaller place. So then it hit me. This is not what he wanted to do. He really wanted to spend some time with his Uncle Marvin.
Okay.
And he wanted me to pray with him about his situation. And I was relieved because I didn't expect this and I thought about you. I thought about, okay, this is how Ricky would have handled this, right? Kyle came to me and said, listen, I'm having problems with my uncle and my uncle about my dad, right? And so he told me, he said, but I'd have made amends. And he said, I care for my dad. I know he might not have been, but that's okay. I've forgiven him.
Okay.
And I realized how deep that was for this young man. So I put my arms around him and I said, let's just pray that your uncle figures out a way to forgive your dad.
Okay.
You feel what I'm saying?
Okay.
But it was just remarkable that my nephew drove 30 minutes all the way from outside of Seattle to Seattle to come see me and meet me. And really, that what was on his heart.
Okay.
You feel what I'm saying?
Okay.
So that's that fathering tool that we have to use now, regardless of whether we want to use it or not. You feel what I'm saying?
Right.
The children that we have a tendency to be able to know what they want from us.
I don't care who them kids gravitate to, as long as they gravitate to somebody. Like when I found out that Irie was down there working with you, I try to make sure I get down here every week. Not to interrupt what you guys got going, because he's working and you running the business. You know what I mean?
Right.
But just to come, he ain't. I live right up the street. How come I can't get down here?
That's true.
You know, so that's the way I look at that.
Yeah.
You know,
man, it's been an awesome journey, and none of us, I'm talking about me or you, would have never imagined the impact that we get a chance to make on our nieces, our nephews, our sons, our daughters. We just wouldn't imagine that.
Right.
Not where you and I came from. You feel what I'm saying?
And when you come from a dysfunctional background, it's hard. But you know, it's because of our spirituality.
Right.
We know why. We ain't did nothing.
No, that's true.
We ain't did nothing. I know I ain't did nothing.
That's true.
You know,
that's true.
My spirituality brought me through this because I've seen other families where you know they're like the Beavers. You know, like who was that brought up Leave It to Beaver one day? Their family was like that, and then they go.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you know, you don't never know how a family is gonna turn out. You don't never know.
it's been an amazing journey, but that journey has its ups and downs.
Mm-hmm.
We managed to be able to embrace some of those and let some of those go.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And when I think back, we're in our middle to late 60s now, man. You feel what I'm saying?
Yeah, we getting on the other side of the mountain.
And so it's now, whether we knew it or not, we saw the opportunity, or I see the opportunity where fatherhood has played a major role in good side and the bad side in our communities. I got one last story, Ricky, to make mention of, and you'll chime right in on this one. So me and Irie was at Safeway yesterday, and I was coming out the store, and there was a guy in a wheelchair sitting there, and he asked me for some change, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, just give me a minute. So I went in the store and I came out, and I realized I used a card, so I didn't have any change. As I walked out of the store, I said, hey, let me run to my car. I got some change in my car. So I went to my car, and I keep a bag of quarters in my car. So I just reached in and got a handful out, and I walked them back to the guy. And I put them in his hand. I said, well, let's do, man. And the guy said, yeah, Marvin, thank you. And
you didn't know he knew you?
No, I didn't know he knew me. I didn't think he knew me.
Okay.
It was Murray King.
Okay.
And I told Irie the story about how Murray King used to chase me and you around, threatened to beat us up the night he tried to take Cotton's car from you.
Yeah.
We just had a whole lot of ups and downs, and I said, it's funny how God would do something. But tell a story about how we used to have to.
So I hope I don't be too long. Now, Murray King, mind you, he didn't like me because, well, me and Marvin both were pretty popular with the women. And so we're at a party, but I got my brother Lee with us. Now, Lee is soft as doctor's cotton. Me and Marvin ain't real tough, but he's soft as doctor's cotton. So we down there in the party, all them old 70 party where all the lights is out. We all over in the corner with some girls. Lee come get me, tell me Murray done took his door key. I should have let him kept it because he wasn't gonna go over there and mess with my dad Cotton. I should have just let him kept it.
Yeah.
So he say, Rick, you got, I'm playing Big Brother. You know what I mean? Half of the fights I got in was because of my brother Lee. So I go tell Murray, hey man, they drunk, they full of red devils and whatever they were taking at the time, but they got some guns. Him and his
they was raggedy guns.
They were raggedy guns, but they got them. You know what I mean? So he gets mad with me and tell me, "You get out of here. You little whatever." I don't want to say the words because I don't curse no more. You get your little butt away from here. And he say something about And matter of fact, don't you move. And so I made him look bad in front of all the little women at the party. I said, man, that little raggedy gun you got, you ain't gonna shoot nobody. And I walked off, and he was scared to shoot me. But I don't think the guns work, so I wouldn't try that now because the way they shoot now. But anyway, so what he did was he was gonna jump on me. So I was gonna break and run, but then I forgot. He the star of the football team. He'd have
caught you.
Yeah. He's real big. He's about big as my dad. So he hit me, slapped me, or do something. But we come on home. But so it was a big embarrassment. But that wasn't the problem. The problem was I see him years later. Same way Marvin did, except I'm not at the Safeway. I'm at the dollar store.
Uh-huh.
He's hanging in front of the dollar store. So all he done did was went around the corner. Yeah, and he's in a wheelchair, and he asked me for some change. Well, don't nobody know this, but every morning on my way, I go by my bank and I get some ones. I get about $20 worth of ones. I don't give out $20 every day. So that way I can reach in my pocket and hand somebody a couple dollars without pulling my money out my pocket. And not just for Murray, but for anybody else. And he's the guy I had a resentment at. and somebody else that I seen that I had to give a couple dollars to that got out of an old Benz was the same guy he was talking about that probably stole my money was Teddy Elliott.
Really?
He was up on 23rd and Jackson.
Yeah.
You know, and he was, you know how they got the scarecrows? Or
Yeah.
I mean, the skeletons hanging over in the corner. He looked about that big. And Murray looked the same way with it. He looked so bad. It wouldn't have did me no good to get my resentment out on him because, I mean.
Plus, we don't need to. You talked about the spiritual.
No, that's what I'm saying. It done already happened to him. Matter of fact, I felt sorry for him.
Right.
I wish I could have helped him.
Right.
I wish I could have got him to come to a Bible study or come to treatment or anything. But
yeah. So listen, we're going to wrap up now, but I wanted to just tell that story, Ricky, because that was one of those things from our past that in no uncertain terms, God has delivered us from all of that, right?
Above and beyond.
Yes, and I give him all the glory to that. But I had your grandson, my great nephew, with me yesterday, and I explained the whole piece to him, and he got a chance to see a piece of it, and I was just honored to be able to do that. So listen, I want to just tell you that, brother, I'm glad that you're able to do this podcast with me. I think we've covered a lot of stuff, or if nothing else, somebody got a chance to peek into our history, to peek into our fatherhood history, to think really about where people can go through, how they can be delivered. How you start is not how you end up.
No, right.
You know what I'm saying?
That's what counts.
And so I want to make sure that who's ever listening to this podcast will just really take heed to some of the stuff that we've heard. And so this is our closing of our show today. Color Him Dads. Your host, Marvin Charles, with his guest, Ricky Stewart Cotton, who's my brother. We raised together and grew up together, and now we carry the same last name. And I'm honored to have you here with me today, man. We didn't see this in the cards 25, 50 years ago, right? So thank you for being my guest today, Rick. And I'll sign off with that.